Om apavitra pavitro va sarva avastangatopi va yat smaret pundarika akshang sabhaya abhyantara shuchihi. Sri Vishnu, Sri Vishnu, Sri Vishnu. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitan Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Mukang Karoti Vachalang Pangung Langhayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamahang Vande Sri Gurung Dinataranam. Yat Kripa Tamahang Vande Parama Anandam Madhavam. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So in our last class, we heard how after Krishna took care of that Poundraka and the king of Kashi, then there was another incident when the son of the king of Kashi wanted to retaliate, and so he worshipped Lord Shiva, and Lord Shiva created for this son of the king a Dakshinagni demon. But the way it worked was that if this fiery demon did not kill its intended person, it would come back and kill the perpetrator, the originator. So as it turned out, the weapon, the demon that was created by Lord Shiva could not harm Krishna in any way. It was frustrated, so it went back and killed the son of the king of son of the king of Kashi. And then of course we heard last week some incidents, some nice glorification of Vamanadev. So tonight we will hear another pastime of Lord Balaram. This one is entitled The Deliverance of Dvivida Gorilla. While Shukadeva Goswami continued to speak on the transcendental pastimes and characteristics of Lord Shiva, Lord Krishna, the characteristics of Lord Krishna, King Parikshit, upon hearing Shukadev, became more and more enthusiastic and wanted to hear further. So that's an important point. This is mentioned many times in the Bhagavatam, that you know you're making spiritual advancement if your eagerness, if your enthusiasm to hear about Krishna is increasing and increasing. Now you know you're making advancement. And how do you know you're not making advancement? Instead of enthusiasm and a taste for hearing and chanting about Krishna, you become more enthusiastic about material activities such as sports and movies and all kinds of political discussions. If that becomes more of an interest to you, then you know you're not making spiritual advancement. The test is how eager, how enthusiastic are you to hear about Krishna. Shukadeva Goswami next narrated the story of Dvivida, the gorilla who was killed by Lord Balaram. This Dvivida gorilla was a great friend of Bauma Asura, or Naraka Asura, who was killed by Krishna in connection with Bauma's kidnapping 16,100 princesses from all over the world. Since Krishna had killed Dvivida's friend Naraka Asura or Bauma Asura, Dvivida intended to destroy Lord Krishna's flourishing kingdom, Dwaraka, in order to retaliate. Dvivida was a minister of King Sugriva during the time of Lord Ram. Although Dvivida was an associate of Lord Ramachandra, later Dvivida became corrupted by bad association with the demon Naraka. This bad association was the reaction for an offense Dvivida had committed when, once being proud of his strength, Dvivida disrespected Lord Ramachandra's brother Lakshman and others. So I must emphasize this last point here. Several things are being mentioned and they need to be highlighted. So number one, Dvivida was an associate of Ramachandra, but because of bad association, he fell down. So this is very, very significant. We have to be very, very careful who and what we associate with. We have an expression here in America: show me your friends and I'll tell you who you are. You can tell everything about a person by looking at their close associates. So because he associated with this Naraka or Bauma Asura, that was bad association. We should always be in the association as much as possible with devotees. And why did he, the next point, why did he fall down to bad association? Because he offended Lakshman. Ramachandra's brother Lakshman is also God himself. Ramachandra, Lakshman, Sugriva, not Sugriva, excuse me, Hanuman, not Hanuman, Ramachandra, Lakshman, Shatrughna, and Bharat, they're the four. The four brothers, they're all Vishnu Tattva, they're all God. So when you disrespect God, then you fall down. Let's continue. Dvivida's brother, Minda, was also a very powerful guerrilla king. But when Dvivida Gorilla heard the story of his friend Bauma Asura being killed by Lord Krishna, Dvivida planned to create mischief throughout the country in order to avenge the death of Bauma Asura. Dvivida's first business was to set fires in villages, towns, and industrial and mining places, as well as in the residential quarters of the mercantile men who were busy dairy farming and protecting cows. Sometimes Dvivida would uproot a big mountain and tear it to pieces. In this way, Dvivida created great disturbances all over the country, especially in the province of Katwar. The city of Dwaraka is situated in this Katwar province, and because Lord Krishna used to live in this city, Dvivida specifically made it his target of disturbance. Dvivida was as powerful as 10,000 elephants. Sometimes Dvivida would go to the seashore, and with his powerful hands, Dvivida would create so much disturbance in the sea that Dvivida would create so much disturbance in the sea that Dvivida would flood the neighboring cities and villages. Often, Dvivida would go to the hermitages of great saintly persons and sages, causing a great disturbance by smashing their beautiful gardens and orchards. And not only did Dvivida create disturbances in that way, but sometimes Dvivida would pass urine and stool on their sacred sacrificial arenas. Dvivida would thus pollute the whole atmosphere. Dvivida also kidnapped both men and women, taking them away from their residential places to the caves of mountains. Putting them within the caves, Dvivida would close the entrances with large chunks of stone, just like the bringy insect, which arrests and carries away many flies and other insects and puts them within the holes of the trees where it lives. Thus, Dvivida regularly defied the law and order of the country. And not only that, but Dvivida would sometimes pollute the female members of many aristocratic families by forcibly raping them. So while creating such great disturbances all over the country, sometimes Dvivida would hear very sweet musical sounds coming from Raivataka mountain. And so Dvivida entered that mountainous region. There, Dvivida saw Lord Balaram in the midst of many beautiful young girls enjoying their company while singing and dancing. Dvivida became captivated by the beauty of Lord Balaram's body. The body of Lord Balaram's every feature was very beautiful, decorated as Balaram was with a garland of lotus flowers. Similarly, all the young girls who were present, dressed and garlanded with flowers, exhibited much beauty. Lord Balaram seemed to be fully intoxicated from drinking the transcendental Varuni beverage, and Balaram's eyes appeared to be rolling in a drunken state. Lord Balaram appeared just like the king of the elephants within the midst of many she-elephants. This gorilla, going by the name Dvivida, could climb up on trees and jump from one branch to another. Sometimes Dvivida would jerk the branches, creating a particular type of sound, killa, killa, so that Lord Balaram was greatly distracted from the pleasing atmosphere. Sometimes Dvivida would come before the women and exhibit different types of caricatures. By nature, young women are apt to enjoy everything with laughter and joking. So when the gorilla Dvivida came before the young women, they did not take Dvivida seriously. They simply laughed at him. However, the gorilla Dvivida was so rude that even in the presence of Lord Balaram, Dvivida began to show the lower part of his body to the woman. And sometimes Dvivida would come forward to show his teeth while moving his eyebrows. Dvivida thus disrespected the women even in the presence of Balaram. Lord Balaram's very name suggests not only is Balaram very powerful, but Balaram takes pleasure in exhibiting his extraordinary strength. So Balaram took a stone and threw it at Dvivida. The gorilla, however, artfully avoided being struck by the stone. In order to insult Balaram, the gorilla Dvivida took away the earthen pot in which the Varuni beverage was kept. Dvivida, being thus intoxicated with his own limited strength, began to tear off all the valuable clothes worn by Balaram and the accompanying young girls. Dvivida was so puffed up that he thought that Balaram could not do anything to chastise him, and so Dvivida continued to offend Balaramaji and his female companions. So when Lord Balaram observed these disturbances created by the gorilla Dvivida, and heard that Dvivida had already performed many mischievous activities all over the country, Balaram became very angry and decided to kill Dvivida. Immediately, Balaram took his club in his hands. The gorilla Dvivida could understand that now Balaram was going to attack him. In order to counteract Balaram, Dvivida immediately uprooted a big oak tree, and with great force, Dvivida came and struck Lord Balaram's head. However, Lord Balaram immediately caught hold of the big tree and remained undisturbed, just like a great mountain. To retaliate, Balaram took his club, which is named Sunanda, and hit the gorilla Dvivida with it, severely injuring Dvivida's head. Currents of blood flowed from Dvivida's head with great force, but the stream of blood simply enhanced Dvivida's beauty, like a stream of liquid manganese coming out of a great mountain. The striking of Balaram's club did not even slightly disturb Dvivida. On the contrary, Dvivida immediately uprooted another big oak tree, and after clipping off all of its leaves, again struck Balaram's head with it. But Balaram, with the help of his club, tore the tree to pieces. Since the gorilla Dvivida was very angry, he then took another tree in his hands and struck Lord Balaram's body. And again, Lord Balaram tore the tree to pieces, while the fighting continued. Each time the gorilla Dvivida would bring out a big tree to strike Lord Balaram, and Balaram would tear the tree to pieces by the striking of his club, and the gorilla Dvivida would then clutch another tree from another direction and again attack Balaram in the very same way. So as a result of this continuous fighting, the forest became denuded or completely treeless. When no more trees were available, Dvivida took help from the hills and threw large pieces of stone, just like rainfall, upon the body of Lord Balaram. In a great sporting mood, Lord Balaram began to smash those big pieces of stone into mere pebbles. The gorilla Dvivida, being bereft of all trees and now stone slabs, stood before Balaram and waved his strong fists. Then, with great force, Dvivida began to beat Lord Balaram's chest with his fists. This time, Lord Balaram became most angry. Since the gorilla Dvivida was striking Balaram with his hands, Lord Balaram would not strike Dvivida back with any of his own weapons. either the club or the plow. So simply with his fist, Balaram struck the collarbone of the gorilla Dvivida, and this blow proved fatal to Dvivida, who immediately vomited blood and fell unconscious on the ground. When the gorilla king Dvivida fell, all the hills and forests appeared to totter. After this horrible incident, all the siddhas, great sages and saintly persons from the upper planetary systems then showered flowers on the person of Lord Balaram, vibrating sounds glorifying Balaram's supremacy. All of them chanted, "All glories to Lord Balaram. Let us offer our respectful obeisances unto your lotus feet. For by killing this great demon Dvivida, you have initiated an auspicious era for the world." All such jubilant sounds of victory were heard from outer space. After the killing, the great demon Dvivida, and being worshipped by showers of flowers and glorious sounds of victory, Lord Balaram returned to his capital city, Dwaraka. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So here are some notes. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur concurs with Srila Jiva Goswami's view that Dvivida was ruined by bad association, which was a punishment for Dvivida's having disrespected Shriman Lakshmanji. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti states, however, that the Mainda and Dvivida mentioned herein are actually the eternally liberated devotees addressed as attendant deities during the worship of Lord Ramachandra. So, the Lord thus arranged their degradation in order to show the evil of the bad association that results from offending great personalities. Thus, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti compares the fall of Dvivida and Mainda to that of Jai and Vijay. Jai and Vijay had to take 3 births as demons, and each time they were killed by the Lord. First, they appeared as Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. Then they appeared as Ravana and Kumbhakarna, and then they appeared as Shishupal and Dantavakra. The word avinayam means without humility. Dvivida, completely lacking in modesty and humility, shamelessly performed the most wicked activities. Lord Balaram knew of the great disturbances Dvivida had caused to people in general, apart from the vulgar behavior the ape was exhibiting in the Lord's own presence. So the offensive ape would surely have to be killed. Even today we see there are many sports wherein people enjoy striking a ball or similar object with a stick or bat. This sporting propensity exists originally in the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who, Lilaya, playfully pulverized the deadly boulders hurled at him by the powerful Dvivida. So, just one more time, I want to emphasize that as devotees, as aspiring devotees, we have to be very, very careful of offenses. Lord Chaitanya points out that the reason why we do not derive attachment or attraction for chanting is only because of offenses. So there are offenses in the matter of chanting. There are 10 offenses, and there are also offenses in deity worship. So one has to be careful. But I'm here to tell you, there is an easy way to become free from all offenses. Who is interested in hearing about that? Yes. So if you study the Chaitanya Charitamrita, the author, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, broadly proclaims that if you are filled with offenses, then you take shelter of the Panchatattva Mahamantra, Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivas Adi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. If you chant that mantra before chanting Hare Krishna and before giving a class, you become free from offenses. So I cannot emphasize enough to chant these names: Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivas Adi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. If that's too much, then just say Nitai Gaura Haribo. That will also help you become free from offenses.